Hey friends, May is Feminist Frequency's 12th birthday. Can you believe it? 12 years of feminist media criticism, of working to end abuse in the games industry. So if you want to keep us going for another 12 years, please consider donating today. You can visit feministfrequency.com for more info.
It's so quick. It's so instinctual. I don't even question that this information has been made available for me and that this doesn't come out of nowhere. There are companies, there are departments of companies devoted to making sure that you have as much information as you could desire.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and I'm joined today by two women so famous, they don't even need last names. But I'm going to give them anyways. Carolyn Pettit.
I'm going to live forever.
Oh, yes.
And Ebony Adams.
Fame.
Fame.
Rob, keep that in.
Yeah.
Please.
Cool. So this week, we're going to be talking about fame, fandom, and the dangerously seductive allure of celebrity. So stick around.
What's up, friends?
Hi. Thank you for taking on my job, Ebony.
Yes. Well, I was trying to help out. You know?
Love it. I love help. I listened to so much 80s this weekend. I dressed up in an 80s outfit and listened to 80s, and this intro just says all around. It made me feel like.
Were you by yourself doing this, or was this for a gathering?
It was me and a friend. We went to a thing and we dressed 80s for it.
Well, I think that's awesome. Although I would have loved it if you had done it just for yourself, in your home.
I'm not. I just don't. I can't. People do that sometimes, or they'll
do that in your home.
They'll put on a bunch of makeup and get all dressed up. I'm like, if I ain't got no one to show it to, what's the fucking point? I just can't.
Treat yourself. Listen, treat yourself.
Care. The point of looking good is to have people appreciate that you look good. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll unpack that in a later episode, sure. But I want you to be able to explore this, just on a random Wednesday if you want to. Live your best Stranger Things life off, event clock.
I didn't say Stranger Things, so you just pulled that in, but
I did.
I didn't say it on the podcast. I told it to you before. But
I was just thinking immediately when people whatever. Yeah. And that's a problem I have.
No, I have no problem with the ability to dress up on my own if I want to. Just psychologically feels silly. I did go to the Stranger Things drive-through experience here in Los Angeles.
That's right. You did mention that. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Are they actually
talk about it in the bonus?
Are they actually showing movies at the drive-in, or what is it?
It's not a drive-in. They took over a parking garage in downtown LA. Yeah. And so you drive into the Starcourt Mall. For the pre-show, and then you drive to an area in the parking garage, and then and then there's a story unfolding. So there's actors running around, they're jumping up onto your car and shit, and then you drive to another section, and there's more theater stuff, and so you're literally it's a drive-through immersive thing.
Right? So it's not okay. I was thrown
off
by the
fun. Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah. I'm glad I went. It wasn't I got caught up in the how it was made aspect of it, the intensity of the sound design and the music design, and it's all level design, right? Because you're literally you're guiding hundreds of cars through a parking garage at the exact timing that you need everyone to be at. And it was fine. It was a cool thing. I think there were little aspects of it that were fun, but it didn't blow my mind or anything. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a cool thing. Especially because they've been running this since October, I think. So it was a really cool thing. I suspect that if it was during hardcore quarantine before a bunch of us have been vaccinated, and you can't go anywhere or do anything, it's all quote unquote safe, at least for the participants, because you're just in your car. Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. It sounds cool, but it also sounds, I don't know why, a bit to me like those immersive haunted Halloween. I think it was when you said people jumping on your cars, and I was just nope.
I mean, nobody jumped on my car, but there were people.
Right, that's when I was okay, I need to back up here.
But there is sure the what's the name of the Demogorgon or whatever, that shit, That shit comes right up to your window and scares the shit out of you when you're not.
Okay, so again,
looking,
then
right?
I retract my retraction. Not into it. Not into it.
But it wasn't like, and I'm a big baby when it comes to horror things. Like, it wasn't that scary. There was just like, anyways, it was cool. It was a cool thing. I'm glad I did it. I think, I get why it was so expensive because it's such a massive production, but I don't really feel like it was worth how much I paid to go to it,
And is it still going on?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. Kid A would love that. I'm going to send her happy ass down there.
Yeah, you should. You should. And dress up because they do like costume contest stuff if they see you all dressed up and shit.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyways, enough of that shit. Why don't we talk about what we're going to talk about?
Let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Okay, this week we are talking fame, celebrity culture, and fandom. Although the concept of celebrity is nothing new, the modern contours of the phenomenon are ripe for unpacking. Witness things like Vice magazine's recent Fame issue, specifically devoted to sketching out the ways that the modern relationship to our pop cultural obsessions is shaping both our lives and the lives of the people we diligently scrutinize, often for the worse. Trying to explore this phenomenon can often feel like traversing a Mobius strip of cause and effect. And there's overlapping concerns that stack onto each other that make it particularly thorny. Things like race, gender, age, class, you name it. We'll be talking about just a few of these things today, including toxic celebrity, access and entitlement, and the false democratization of fame that offers a little bit of notoriety to anyone. I am excited to talk about this today. I hope we have a really fruitful conversation. I started thinking about this when I saw that Vice magazine issue on Fame, because I, just clicked at random on one of the articles in the issue, and it was the one about Ava Rose, this young girl. I believe she's 19 now? She's still very, very young. This young woman who had amassed this huge following on TikTok, and her life collapsed in just a horrific way because of the attention of, one bad actor in particular, but, the pressures of existing under that scrutiny. I don't think it's something that anyone is ready for, but certainly it's not someone who has like a team around them in the way that like we're kind of accustomed to celebrities having a team of people protecting them. And also people who are, slightly older, maybe with more life experience and more like, I don't know, hopefully sort of emotional insulation. I was just really struck by this because I was like, here's someone who I've literally never heard of before today, And part of that is just age, right? I'm 87 years old. But also, she operates in an arena in which I have no investment, but she is, by any measure, someone who is well known. I mean, yeah, maybe a kind of niche celebrity. And I just thought, this is fascinating. I cannot imagine what we are doing to people. And yet it seems as if this is something that so many people continue to chase, The idea of like being well known, which to them will equal well loved, which will then also equal tremendous success and riches, right? And it doesn't matter how many times we see the ruptures in that illusion, people keep chasing it, and there seem to be more and more avenues for people to try and gain it. So I was like, you know what, let's spend some time talking about this. And then as I started thinking about how we would shape the conversation to today, it just seemed as if like the more I started unpacking different readings around Fame, the more issues started throwing themselves at my face. So I know we're going to get into a bunch of stuff today, including one of the things that you brought up in the Fem Freak Slack, Anita, which is toxic celebrity.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many pieces to this conversation. I don't even know where to begin. Like,
I think let's just dive in. Like, this is not, someone's doctoral dissertation. There are absolutely things that we aren't going to touch on that I'm sure we'll get, messages about like, well, what about this? And, whatever. It's impossible over the course of 40 minutes to offer like a complete cogent encapsulation of this. But there's so much to talk about, right? And I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say because you are someone who has dealt with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I don't want you to like, have to, unpack your trauma box for people, but I do think like you offer a perspective that, Carol and I don't have. I don't I don't have the experience of having been on the cover of Time magazine.
I was not on the fucking cover, Ebony.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You were, what were you? One of Time's most important people?
Yeah, whatever. So
Time's cutest 80s cosplayers.
Hell yeah, that's me. That's what can I be famous for that?
Yeah, I'm a write-in right now to the governing fame board.
Great. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think like I have a very uncomfortable relationship with celebrity even before like experiencing a tiny bit of it. And you know, it always feels kind of gross to talk about celebrity in relation to myself because like it's not like I'm fucking Angelina Jolie, you know, like it's just like a different level. But the reality is that there is a whole world of like digital social media people who are known, right, and have their own celebrity, and there's a whole industry that's been built around it. And this reminds me of in Felicia Day's book, the intro is a story about how she was in a mall like at Build-A-Bear or something ridiculous like that, and these kids came up to her and were like, "Holy shit, you're Felicia Day," and their mom was like, "Who?" And she just used that as this story to encapsulate like when you're known on the internet, like you're really fucking known by a group of people, you know?
And it's only becoming more and more splintered as more and more platforms give rise to their own internal celebrities, right? Like you might be like really huge on Twitch, but not be known at all on like Twitter or YouTube, or like huge on TikTok and not known on, you know, on other platforms, right? So you have like not only is it just social media in general, but it's like all these individual ecosystems at work too that each have their own like hierarchy of celebrities, which I just think is completely novel like thing. Like, I mean, it's, you know, the nature of celebrity is just changing so rapidly right now.
And I think that there's like, I don't, so there's a struggle here around the fact that like, you know, there's kids are growing up wanting to be famous, right? And that's not new, but it's now attainable in a different way than it ever was. And like, there's something really gross about that to me. Like I didn't set out to be a known person. I set out to like, be annoyed with academia, you know, like this was my pathway to like do education in a different forum, which, you know, whatever, that doesn't really, who gives a shit about that. But I think that like what you pointed out, this idea of the democratization of fame, which is bullshit in a lot of ways, but that there's this idea that if you are like, you know, you can attain money and stardom by being your authentic self online, like if you start doing it when you're 5 at this point, right? Like that you build an audience and everyone will love you and it's all great. But I think what we're not seeing is the exhaustion and the toll that it takes to build that platform. Because it's not like you go do a bunch of movies and then have to do some interviews and you're famous. It's that your life 24/7 now becomes a product. And you're even seeing this with celebrities that we consider like, you know, Hollywood celebrities. It's not just, you know, being an actor in general or whatever role it is, but musician, what have you, like is exhausting enough to do your craft, but then having to do all of the media and all of the promotion and all of the touring and all of that shit. And then now you also have to be online. Right now, you also have to have a social media presence. So I think the combination of all of that, like we don't really realize like what we are demanding of and asking of with this constant churning of quote unquote content, which is literally your life. You know,
and the illusion of connection, like the like the idea of the parasocial relationship. You want people to feel like they know you, like they have access to you in some way, like maybe like you're kind of almost like their friend, but you know, but with that's where so much of the danger lies, and so much, you know, so many people can get attached in ways that are unhealthy or inappropriate and everything. So
I want to go back real quick to the notion of like fandom communities and different fandoms. One of the people that I follow on Twitter, he writes for The Root. His name is Michael Harriot. Writes for tons of outlets. But one of the funny things he has talked about in various tweet threads is the concept of like Black famous versus white famous. And in his schematic, the far end of it is someone who is known to like every Black person, but known to no white people. And so he'll periodically do these threads. And it's always hilarious because you absolutely, you'll have people like dropping names or whatever. And then the responses from people outside of the community who are like, yep, I literally have no idea who this is. And then, a bunch of Black people chiming in and be like, how do you not know, Rollo or whatever, right? But this, I definitely wouldn't get into this idea of fan access. So I watched The Boy from Medellin, and I just learned that apparently that's how you say it if you're from Colombia, not Medellin, but Medellin, about J Balvin. Do y'all know who J Balvin is?
No. Not really, no.
So he is an amazing performer. He is from Colombia. He is... I believe at one point, whatever his latest single was at that time had the most number of streams ever. Like, this dude is absolutely a global phenomenon. And I love that, like, again, you talk about different fandoms and the nature of fame, right? The fact that 2 out of the 3 people on this podcast are like, no, I don't really know who this is. And I just vaguely know who this dude is. But because I had read that because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, there's a documentary about him on Amazon Prime. I'm like, oh, let me go check this out. So it's a week in his life. They show him getting ready for a stadium concert in Colombia, and, flying and, dealing with just these masses of fans, right? Just masses of fans. And he talks about how his struggles with depression and anxiety and OCD in particular mean that the effect of his fame on him is that he is physically and mentally incapable of not saying yes when people ask to take pictures with him. And there is this, to me, like, it might as well be a horror movie scene where he is just surrounded by this mass of young kids, kids, teenagers, adults, but mostly really young people. And it's just one after the other. Can I take a picture with you? Can I take a picture with you? And in his voiceover, he's saying, I know that if I say no to someone, I'm going to remember that person for the rest of my life. And I'm going to be
God.
Yeah. And it's this weight, this burden that he has. And I just thought, there's no way when you sign up to, pursue a career of whatever type, whether it's, musician, actor, whatever, that even if you hope for success, that the access that people start demanding of you and that you then place upon yourself is ever part of, the algorithm, like the computations.
Well, and also you are afraid you're going to lose your status if you start right. If you start sort of rejecting your fans.
Because you never know, right? There, in addition to the ways that the internet can boost you up, how easy is it for backlash to occur if there's a critical mass of people being like, oh, J Balvin, doesn't fuck with his fans, like he's too good for us now, whatever. That can have a real effect on people's careers. To always have to walk that tightrope, there's absolutely there. But for me, what was most interesting was that it wasn't about continuing to be famous for him, but it was really about the responsibility that he felt to like mediate someone else's happiness, And I just thought that's something that no person should carry. No one should feel as if, they don't have the right to say no to someone else, to not enforce certain boundaries. And yet fame continually forces this upon people, And I just thought, anyways, it's a really good documentary. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in it about, fame. One of the other things that's going on is that, there is just like, these protests happening in the country at the time of this concert against the right-wing government of President Duque in Colombia. And people are saying they want J Balvin to speak out on it. And he doesn't want to do it because he's like, no matter what I say, I'm going to upset someone. And at that point, it does become more of, it is more like transactional. Like if I say the wrong thing, then perhaps I'll lose this segment of fans. But it's this constant negotiation of the lives that people lead once you reach a certain level of notoriety. And it is impossible to thread that needle consistently.
And I also think there's a complication here too around like all of us are fans of things, right? Like we wouldn't be doing a pop culture podcast if we weren't.
Right.
And like I think that there are ways in which, and maybe we talk about this in a minute, but just to caveat what I'm about to say is that like there are ways in which fandom isn't really about the item as much as the community, right? As much as the people you connect with on this shared thing, right? Whatever it might be. Or the creative works that you like, fan fiction and viding and remix and like art and all of that stuff. Like I think there's such a beautiful world of connection around fandom in general. But one of the things that I think becomes difficult is that and I can only speak from my experience, but like I have become a symbol for people, right? Like the work that I did and the impact that I had on people is I've become a symbol that, for better or worse, depending on who you are, which doesn't really have anything to do with who I am, right? Like it has nothing to do with really who I am as an individual, like, my friends or whatever would say about who I am. And so it becomes this weird thing where like, when you become a fan of a character on a TV show, you attach that to the actor, right? But the actor is going to fucking disappoint you because they don't give a shit about the things that you give a shit about, or even maybe the character gave a shit about, right? And so for me, I struggle with that a little bit where like people can be a little intense around me sometimes. And I know that it has nothing to do with me because they don't actually know me, right? They just know who I represent to them and the impact I had on their lives.
Also, like, I mean, for me personally, yes, we are all fans of things, but I mean, I would say that in the past 10 years or less, I have become wary of using the word fan to describe myself about anything. Well, I'll say it that I love a thing, but it just because it feels so often nowadays as if being a fan of a thing is associated with a thing, or like be it like Star Wars or an individual, an musical artist, an actor, what have you. Like it can be associated with like feelings of ownership or entitlement of the thing, or like ideas that you want the thing to fulfill your ideas for what it or they should do or should be, rather than like I don't know, like I mean, when I love an artist, usually part of what I love about them, often anyways, is like their adventurousness and their willingness to do things that aren't just like calculated to be pleasing to their fans, right? Things that might be like kind of not calculated for commercial impact or fan fan service or what have you. So anyway, like I just, and I mean, obviously, like you can have healthy fandom, but I just personally, I'm almost at this point where like I see so many fans in the mold of the Kathy Bates character from Misery that that I'm like I just see fandom in a very different way now in 2021 than I did 10 years ago or what have you, that I'm almost like reluctant to call myself a fan of anything.
I had and even though I've been thinking about, what we were going to talk about for the past couple of weeks, I've been reading things. Nevertheless, I found myself a day or two ago, someone tweeted something, or retweeted something onto my timeline, and I didn't recognize the account that it had been tweeted from. So I went to that original posters page, and I was like, oh, this person looks interesting. Let me, check and see if I can find out anything about them, which that step is fine.
Yeah.
Before you wholesale grace somebody with one of your Twitter files, you want to make sure that they aren't, fucked up in a lot of ways. So, I Google this person. I'm not going to tell you who this person was. That's kind of immaterial to this. But so I Google this person. They are, mid-level famous, let's say like D-list level famous. And they have a Wikipedia page, which it seems that almost everyone has, right? And I did that thing where I skipped down to personal life, and in the personal life section, there's a link to the person that I believe they're like romantically involved with. And I clicked on that. And it was at that point that I was like, what the fuck am I doing? It's so quick. It's so instinctual. The fact that I don't even question that this information has been made available for me, and that this doesn't come out of nowhere. There are people. There are many, many people. There are companies. There are departments of companies devoted to making sure that you have as much information as you could desire about people. Dude. And there's something deeply wrong about the fact that I have access to personal information about some folks' lives, and the level of detail that you can get.
You can Google some shit about me. Like, it's almost all wrong. But there's like these celebrity quote unquote websites that, like, if I'm on it, that means there's got to be 10,000 million anyone that's ever had any following. And
is it those ones where it's like Anita Sarkeesian net worth $10 million?
And they're almost all of the information is wrong, which is hilarious. But like, it's so creepy. Like, there's a whole industry, and there always has been, right? Like tabloid. This is tabloid culture, right? But as you were talking, I was thinking about how Carolyn posted today about how like some celebrity is getting divorced and then another celebrity is getting married or getting back together or whatever. And like the first one, I didn't know who he was, and I Googled him, and I was like, why am I Googling him? I don't even give a shit. I don't care about any of this.
Like 20 minutes laughing about Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck possibly getting back together with someone today, and then being like, wait, why do I know this information? Why is this information available? Why has it become so ubiquitous already, this return to couplehood, that it has become like meme worthy, on the social media platforms that I traffic in? Like, it happens that quickly. Yeah. It happens that quickly. The fact that like there's a whole, sort of like subculture devoted to taking pictures of Ben Affleck outside of the house, going to get Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Oh, what are we doing? What are we doing as a culture?
For real. For real. Yeah.
But it's so easy to get sucked into that. Like, look, I do not consider myself someone who gets like absorbed. Like, I don't really get starstruck. And I don't know if that has to do with like, I just basically grew up in LA. So like you see celebrities all the fucking time. But I've already shared the one story of when I did get starstruck and I was an idiot. But like every now and again I do what you're talking about, Ebony, where I'm like, oh, I wonder what the deal is with this person. Like, are they married? Are they like, where did they grow up? Like, I'll just be like into an actor, and I'm like, they're not my friend. So why do I give a shit?
It's so easy, and those serotonin hits are just like constantly available. And Twitter for me is the worst because it's just a constant, steady stream of stuff like that. I think maybe this isn't like the biggest issue in this web of very complex issues, but I do think it's, for me anyway, it's important to mention too that, so, you mentioned Ava Rose, or, this like TikTok celebrity who was like a huge celebrity when she was, I don't know, when her fame started, she was 15 or 16, something like that. Like another, and like an issue that I think we have to consider too with this, like with the rise to fame that's available to some young people on these social media platforms, is then the danger of making mistakes, right? I mean, like, and I'm not saying this is like in a cancel culture is real way or whatever, but like when you're fucking 16 or 17, you're gonna fucking, if you have anything like a normal life and a normal growth and evolution as a person, you're gonna say and do some stupid shit. And I don't know, like, I just, I think it's like the danger of like being followed for the rest of your life because you say something clueless when you're like 16 or whatever. Like that to me too is like a danger that's kind of new or certainly enhanced by the social media ecosystem that we live in now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the mistakes that we made as children, back in the 1820s, potentially had an audience of our family, our friends, the other people on the farm. But, there was not a global audience. There wasn't, an eager community of people ready to screenshot 1 second of a video and make us famous for falling or, having a weird facial expression, something that will follow us potentially for who knows how long. So yeah, we talked about, Ava Rose, and one of the things that we haven't really talked about explicitly is the way that this gets manifested along gender lines and the ways that the very real dangers for young women in particular, and particularly young women of color in this space. As with everything, just getting the short end of the stick, but the vitriol, the violence, the violence of the words and the attention directed at these young people, when they dare to not be available 24/7 in the ways that folks demand is unconscionable.
Yes.
And although you do occasionally see men having to deal with that kind of attention, it is not remotely comparable in terms of the amount or intensity.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say
I do encourage listeners to this podcast. The links will be in the show notes to read that the Vice story about Ava Rose. I mean, the harassment. I mean, harassment is too mild a word for it. She
was stalked and
the terrorization that she had to endure was pure like male sexualized, like entitlement to her body, to sex, to etc. Yeah.
I also think that on these lines, one thing that I see and hear all the time from marginalized creators is, especially women of all backgrounds, talking about I get harassment, that there's a normalization. Like I'm having like a knee-jerk reaction to seeing this and hearing this so often these days, where it's just like, yeah, it just kind of comes with being online. But my fans are really nice. Like the nice ones are really nice, and that like makes up for everything. And I'm like, no, it fucking doesn't. The reality is, and anyone who tells you that they get some bad comments, but the good ones outweigh the bad are fucking lying. And I tell you this because of actual human psychology. This isn't just oh, I'm bitter or whatever. Our brains tend to focus and obsess on the bad stuff more than the good stuff. And that's just how humans are in a lot of ways.
Not to say don't send those,
yes.
When I was at GameSpot and I was getting flooded sometimes with transphobic shit or whatever, having people say, hey, I want you to know I really appreciate what you do, was meaningful. So,
totally. Yes,
please do let people know that you have their back, that you admire them and all of that. But yes.
I just really want us to wreck it. So 100%, Carolyn, thank you for clarifying that, because it does matter. It does matter to hear that what you're doing is valuable and useful and that you're cared for. But I don't want folks to get confused when people are trying to brush off the reality of their lives, because it's harder to deal with than it is to actually reckon with the harm. And I can only say that as someone who's 10 years out from this shit. I was I was saying the same fucking thing in the middle of it, and at different phases I was like, it doesn't affect me, because you become so immune to it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't, right? And so I'm very troubled by the fact that when a part of this being online, having a modicum of an audience, whatever that size may be, results in an acceptance begrudgingly you're going to be harassed and that
it normalize. It's like, well, this is just the way it is, right? It normalizes the status quo rather than taking the position of no, this sucks and we have to change it.
And in one of those articles that, Ebony, you gave us to read, there was a father who makes TikToks with his 5-year-old and is like, yeah, it's fine. I just block people and stuff. And I'm like, are you? And then he's like, and I have conversations and my kid's really smart. And I was like, what the fuck? Whatever, I'm not a parent. I'm not here to judge you. But let's not trivialize the fact that people are mean.
The cost benefit analysis that dude is doing on behalf of his child is just stunning to me. But yeah, I think we absolutely need to talk about and I'm not being hyperbolic here, the PTSD that people, are having to deal with. Because I remember, in that article, Ava Rose saying I deal with it. And, there's a certain comforting lie that you have to tell yourself just to get through the day. But I'm trying to imagine the hypervigilance that she has to live her life with now, that she has been put in this position. And it does not matter if she went on TikTok, showed her ass. It doesn't matter if she came on there in a nun outfit. There is no way in which what she has been subjected to is in any way deserved. And yet we accept it. And it is so easy for us to look away because this fame machine, keeps churning out a never-ending, soft serve of things to look at and things to comment upon, and people to obsess over, people to hate. It is as if we can no longer exist in a cultural space in which there's any distance from the art and the artist and ourselves. The two must become one. And so you have, in so many ways, people making their fandom and their relationship to someone famous a fundamental part of who they are and their worldview. And one of the things, I don't know that we have, time to get into deeply, but you mentioned Star Wars, Caro, and I'm thinking about Kelly Tran, right?
Sure.
And, just being chased off social media by these horrible fans who, have an idea of what Star Wars is to them, which is largely white and male and fascist, and who simply could not countenance her presence online. And so we're determined to make her life a living hell.
Exactly. And there's but this... I feel like this is also all rooted in consumerism too. It's very similar to me anyway. There's a lot of parallels to gamers who identify very strongly with their big AAA gaming franchises, right? And whose identities get taken, whose idea of the source of meaning in life is the next, whatever, Call of Duty release or what have you, and who then
Cyberpunk. What?
And who might then if the game doesn't in some way meet their expectations or betrays their expectations, who may send hateful messages or death threats to the game devs because they nerf a particular gun that they like to use in multiplayer or what have you. That kind of goes back to what I was saying about fandom earlier. When it crosses over into this sense of both ownership, but also this is a central source of meaning in my life, and therefore, if it betrays my expectations, it somehow means that my life means less or something. That's just that is such a huge problem in our culture where where so much money is fueled into building up hype and building up brands and fueling fan fervor around things and making and sending them the message of the customer / fan is always right and the thing should exist to serve your needs.
Yeah, and the person to whom you are addressing this, by virtue of having been in this multi-billion-dollar grossing product, is no longer you no longer have to treat that person as a person,
right?
If you ever did, right? The fact that Kelly Tran has made the money from this incredibly successful movie means that you can say anything to her on Twitter, in the way that you probably wouldn't if she were just some random person in front of you. And of course, some people would, but as if there's like permission being given, and it goes back to the, well, if you're famous, there's a certain cost to it, right? And one of the costs is you have to just allow people to say whatever they want to you, and your money, should be enough for you to feel fine about these things. Like go home and cry yourself to sleep on your big pile of money. It's fucked up.
Well, and also we've never had as direct of a relationship to celebrities as we have. Like a lot of what we're talking about isn't new, even, you were talking about like young people, their child actors have been around since acting began, right? Like a lot of this stuff isn't new, but I think that social media has opened up this like direct line.
Yes.
Which has created more entitlement and more aggression and more if you wanted to communicate your feelings to a celebrity, you'd have to like physically write a fucking letter. Yeah. And then that celebrity may or may not look at it or whatever. But now it's like you just throw some tweets up and like depending on what that celebrity's life is like, they might be scrolling through their mentions like the rest of us are,
Well, and what sucks is like, what if they don't, but that they've got a PR person who is in charge of reading that stuff. So someone is reading it, right? And then whose job it is to decide whether they have to communicate that information to celebrity X, either because there's a safety issue or because they're going to be asked about it later, right? Because it's not uncommon for people to be in an interview and for someone to say like, well, on Twitter, they're saying Anita Sarkeesian doesn't eat Cheerios. What do you say to that? And it's like, well, I hadn't read those tweets and, but okay, I guess I now have to come up with a response to this. It is inescapable.
Yeah. I have something I like. I'm gonna save it for the bonus. I have something I like kind of want to work out around like expectations of like political alignment with celebrity and fandom.
Ooh.
Especially with like left tube stuff and whatever. I think, but I don't. Bread tube. Yeah, but I don't. I don't have it thought out well enough for Maine. So we're gonna go to alt, which is our bonus. The bonus is really like alt Twitter.
Oh my God. All right. Well, this might be the week. If you haven't signed up for our Patreon, this might be the week for you to do it. And it might not be, but no refunds will be issued. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I feel like we could do multiple episodes on like different pathways that we've taken in this conversation because there's so much here that's really interesting. I do want to say that like, hey, we have a hotline. So if like any of these issues are affecting you or like you're feeling intense about them, like these are the kinds of things that we want to be there for you. So like, I know it's like people who make or play games, but like all of y'all are in the inner circle that are listening to this right now. So if you want someone to talk to or need a little emotional support, please text us. It's text support to 23368. Wow, I said that really weird. 23368 in the US. I don't know. I was feeling like a lot came up for me in this conversation.
No, I appreciate.
So, like, maybe it did for other people too, and we're here for you. So, also, if you can't decipher my jibber jabber, just go to gameshotline.org for more info on the hotline.
Awesome.
All right, y'all.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our main for today. So we'll be right back with some freak outs.
Just really quick, I wanted to remind y'all that the Games and Online Harassment Hotline is here for you, for your friends and your colleagues. We provide emotional support to folks who make or play games, which is such a broad range of people. So, you might not need it today, but maybe you need it tomorrow. So we just want you to know about it. You can learn more at gameshotline.org. What's your freak out? Now it's time to talk about what's been thrilling us, moving us, upsetting us, or infuriating us this past week. Ebony, do you have something? I can't remember.
I do. It's quick, though, because I have not yet finished the book, but I am in love with it. It's called The Good Luck Girls. It's by Charlotte Nicole Davis. I believe it's her debut novel. I'm just going to read you real quick the summation that's up on Goodreads, because y'all know I'm terrible at these freakouts. I'm not good at explaining why something has, just like rung my bell. But the Goodreads description reads thusly. Westworld meets The Handmaid's Tale in this stunning fantasy adventure from debut author Charlotte Nicole Davis. The country of Arquetta calls them good luck girls. They know their luck is anything but. Sold to a welcome house as children and branded with cursed markings, they're trapped in a life they would never have chosen. When Clementine accidentally murders a man, the girls risk a dangerous escape and harrowing journey to find freedom, justice, and revenge in a country that wants them to have none of those things. It's like a futuristic, like alt-West Thelma and Louise situation. It is so, so good. The main characters are people of color. In fact, I want to say the main characters are all Black, but I'm not quite sure because, like I said, I haven't, finished the book yet. The world building is absolutely exquisite and by turns horrifying, galling, just glaring in your face, real. I am absolutely in love with this book. If I had read this book, it's considered, I believe, YA. If I had read this book when I was, 14 or 15, I probably would have become a bank robber. It's that good, girls riding the range, shooting guns and taking down rapists and bad guys and racists. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is everything I need in the world. So The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis. So consider this Freq Out, 1A, and then 1B, I'll come back after I finish the book and then tell you like how it wrapped up and, was amazing, but so, so good. Oh, and there's some like young queer love. Oh my God, this book is so good, y'all. Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just piggyback on Carolyn's freak out about Devotion, which was a horror video game that she talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that a few weeks back or last week. I don't remember when. Anyways, if you are a follower of us on our Twitch channel, which is FemFreak, twitch.tv/FemFreak, I streamed half the game or so. And it is a horror game. Like it is a freaky ass scary game, but Lord, let me tell you, it's beautiful. Like the design of it, like the way that the story unfolds, like if I can muster the strength to play this fucking game, I highly recommend all of my like horror scary people that like video games and like environmental storytelling to check out this game. Like, do it with the lights on, get some friends on, whatever you need to do, but it's worth it. That's not actually my freak out. I just wanted to like reiterate.
Yeah, appreciate it. And props to you for playing that game. I was really pleased to
Carolyn literally came on stream and just like virtually held my hand.
Yes, yeah, basically, yes, yeah. But
I needed that.
Definitely appreciate you sharing that game with our viewers.
Yeah, man. Okay, so my freak out this week is it's by Becky Chambers. I can't remember if I talked about the Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Have I freaked out about this book yet? I think I may have missed it. Anyways, Becky Chambers has this series called the Wayfarers series. The first book is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I absolutely loved. And I just finished the second one in the series called A Closed and Common Orbit. Now, the second book is separate enough from the first book that you can just read it. Like if for some reason you don't want to read the first one, you don't need any extra information to understand what's happening in the second one, for whatever that's worth. So in the first book, it is this like ragtag team of like of folks that like it's like a found family in flying in space, like, trying to make money and survive. And it's just like, I can't help but compare it to Firefly, even though I hate Firefly. And I think that show sucks. But it does have that feeling of like this like found family that I love. Like I love those stories. And I think she does a really beautiful job of like building all of these different aliens, right? And all of their backstories and cultures and like who like the political machinations of them, but also like it's such an amusing commentary on how like really weird humans are, because you're seeing it reflected from other species who do different things. So like there's one species or one alien species who is like like just so affectionate, just touch all the time, and like everyone touches and cuddles, and like there's just so much fucking touch happening that like she has to adjust to being on a ship with humans where you can't just touch each other all the time, and like you know, like just fun, like just stuff like that I love. I also feel like one of the things about the book is that there are moments that do feel a little preachy. But I kind of loved it because I was like, yeah, man, like that's a good point. Or like, yeah, you bring it. And like doing it in a way that's still kind of loving as opposed to like, I am now being lectured. So, you know, just wanted to call that out. So the second book that I just finished, A Closed and Common Orbit, is about an AI that gets put into a synthetic body. And that's illegal. Like you're not allowed to do that because the AIs live in ships or in machines, right? And so it's about this AI having to acclimate to like not having a million cameras and constantly having all of the information from the internet or the equivalent of the internet and like just existing in a body and being like quote unquote human. And so it's just this fascinating exploration of how she adjusts and how she figures out like your identity and like who you are and what that looks like when you're in this new space. It's also contrasted with this other character, Pepper, who comes from she's a mass-produced like human character that's like fake. They breed these children to work in factories. And so she like you learn the story of how she liberated herself from that life, and it's fucking wild and like fascinating. And it also involves another AI, and it's just these characters are like become like your best friends. Like you really care for them and love them, and like are really like here for their like support and growth and all of that. So I'm loving it so far. I'm gonna definitely check out like more in this series by Becky Chambers. So recommend, just to repeat since I just rambled on. Oh fuck! What's the name of the first one? A long way to a small angry planet. Yes, thank you. There you go. My notes are all over the place. And then this one is called A Closed and Common Orbit. So, yeah, man, I love space families. Mm-hmm. Can we be a space family?
Yes.
Great. Great. That was easy. All right, y'all. Are we done? We're done. Submit your own freak out at feministfrequency.com/freakout. FREQOUT. Thanks so much for listening to Feminist Frequency Radio. Next week, I believe we are talking about Carrie, which was chosen by our patrons. We gave them the option of Bad Mothers, and you know, it was close, but Carrie came
to be clear, the original Carrie.
Yeah, I don't want to watch that repeat again.
Nah.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's the same fucking movie.
No. I mean, I haven't seen the reboot, but
the reboot is
even
the
if
same...
it tells the same story, it's not the same movie.
No, of course, but like the reboot. Okay, I'm gonna save this for that episode, y'all. If you want to hear my thoughts about the reboot, we'll talk about it next week too. All right, our show is engineered by Rob Parra. Carrie Stimson provides technical support, artwork by Jamie Varon, and our intro music is by Phil Circus. Thanks for listening.
Bye, y'all.